Hi everyone, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about how I personally see and interact with surveillance capitalism and racial capitalism. So first, let's start with surveillance capitalism. It's explained as the companies collecting our data all the time, even when we don't fully notice, and then using that information to make money. So at this point, they're not just apps anymore. We are not just apps anymore. We are the product. Kind of like when you're on social media and then you'll search one thing up, and then all of a sudden, when you search this one thing, your whole feed is that same thing repeated over and over. At first, I used to think like, oh, cool. I guess my phone knows what I like. Like my algorithm it knows what I like. But now it just feels weird, like we're being constantly watched and no privacy at all. And then also these apps don't just show us like ads, they shape, like they change our thinking and of like what we want. So there have been times where I wasn't even thinking about buying something, but because it kept like repeatedly popping up over and over and over, I convinced myself like, okay, it keeps popping up, so maybe I need it. And of course, this is what companies want so they can profit off of us. So for my personal interaction with surveillance capitalism, I would say it's a negative one because it feels very invasive. Like I have no kind of privacy and also very manipulating. Of course, that's also on me and not having good self-control. But it does feel very invasive and manipulative. So yeah, now moving on to racial capitalism. It's explained as how capitalism has always used race to justify unequal treatment and profit off of it. So I feel like this is something that we can see in everyday lives. One example is how certain communities get over policed or charged for more things because um, companies assume that they can get away with it. So this can be in basic things like housing, credit checks, or even a lot of rideshare apps like Uber or Lyft. Prices can change depending on your neighborhood, and a lot of the times, those high risk areas are mostly communities of color. So for example, in like one neighborhood that's primarily filled with white people, and Uber may not be as expensive. But if you were, for example, to get an Uber in San Bernardino, which is a higher crime rate city, the Uber would most likely be more expensive there. Um, so companies are literally using racialized geography in order to make money and profit. I do also see racial capitalism online. There are so many trends that come from Black culture, whether it's their hairstyles, slang, music, and then brands and many influencers are profiting off of them without giving credit or investing back into these communities. So that was one of the examples. And racial capitalism extracts value from marginalized groups without returning the value. So it's kind of like these companies love to make profit off of these off of these cultures, but they won't do anything to give them credit where credit is due or to pour back into those communities. So personally, I feel like both systems are very negative. Surveillance capitalism takes our privacy, and racial capitalism continues inequalities in ways that look normal. And the scary part is that it all happens pretty quietly, so we don't always know how much our experiences are kind of shaped by it, because it's not something that right away we would know off the bat. So yeah, those are my thoughts on surveillance capitalism and racial capitalism. And I'm scrolling my notes. My question for today for everyone: how do you think these systems affect what we see as normal online? And do you think it's even possible to use social media without feeding into social capitalism and racial capitalism.